Good evening. We're with the International Dyslexia Association Oregon branch, and we're going to be interviewing Dr. Christy Coss tonight. Excited to share her story. Please drop us a line if you have questions. Also, you can reach out to us at the International Dyslexia Association Oregon branch and email us there. We'll be happy to get back to you. We got a couple of things coming up. We're doing a Arts and Minds event in May, so excited to share that with you. That's on our website, and it's also on my Instagram handle here, so you can check the link out there. And we have Dr. Coss in the house. How's it going?
Good. Go ahead and finish what you were saying.
Oh, no, I was just talking about our Arts and Minds event coming up in May.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about that one.
Yeah, me too. I think it'll be a really cool panel. Some extraordinary women, so really excited to share their story and moderate that panel. So I'm excited to talk to you. You have such a unique story, and I was just wondering if you could start from where you're at right now and what you're doing from a career standpoint. I think that'd be really cool to share with our audience.
So I am a pediatrician. I work as how I explain it is a substitute pediatrician at Kaiser Nursery because I don't actually have a part-time or real-time job there, but I fill in for my friends when they're on maternity leave or vacation, or something like that, but I only do the nursery. And then I work in medical chart review now from home, which I make sure that the orders that people are giving are the right tests and that we are trying to decrease radiation exposure as much as possible to decrease later healthcare issues.
Okay.
Before this, before I came back to Portland, I worked in small town Arkansas and did every type of pediatric work. So outpatient clinic and hospital work and nursery work. So full-time pediatrician doing that. So
you're a doctor. You're doing a number of things. Has it always been like, was this the path? Were you one of those children that were like, this is going to be a doctor, like destined from day one?
I always wanted to be a doctor, outside of probably my mom and maybe my grandfather, maybe my dad, but I don't know that he really believed so much. I'm not sure anyone actually thought I'd accomplish it. I did not do well in school at all.
No way.
And when I started middle school, my parents were told that I may not even be able to finish high school because I was doing so badly.
Okay, so I was told the same thing, that I wouldn't graduate, that, like there is that label on me as well. So what does that do for you as a child that's going through this?
I think by then I had already learned to ignore people. Very early in elementary school, it bothered me a lot, but by middle school, my mom had already told me multiple times, the teachers don't know, I know you can accomplish this, and my mom was really supportive. And so I just ignored them, and have continued to do so most of my life when people tell me I can't do something. Not to mention, not only was I told that, I also grew up in the South, where back then women weren't supposed to be doctors anyway. So I went to a school where the girls took sewing and the boys got to have PE class. So I learned to ignore the teachers early on.
So is that where you learned stitching? Is that where you learned like how doctors
I actually do love doing needlepoint, but the stitching I learned in medical school is much better than what I learned in elementary school.
So I want to pause because I think it is an important point. Like, you have this label on you. You have a double label, being a woman in the South and going through that, but you also have this like strong desire to want to be a doctor. How do you navigate that? I know it sounds like you had emotional support from home. What was that like being in school though? Because
so both my sisters I'm the youngest, and both my sisters are very intelligent. I never had any problems at school. Where I went, they didn't know what dyslexia was, and I've never been officially diagnosed. I had a reading tutor who didn't understand dyslexia. I've gone back and looked at her notes now, and she's like, I don't know why she can't rhyme. I don't know why she can't knows a word one day and not the next. I mean, classic dyslexia symptoms. And so eventually I figured it out. And my mom just kept going and taking me to try to figure out what was wrong. We got my eyes checked, my hearing checked. I'm sure everyone has been through that multiple times. I never tried the different colored lenses, but you know, I had eye exercises and went to eye therapy and got put on Ritalin, got diagnosed with ADHD, got diagnosed with bipolar because I would act out, which I am not either one of those. I don't think. Maybe I'm a little ADHD, but if so, I hyperfocus pretty well. And my mom just kept pushing, saying, this isn't right, and taking me when things didn't fit. And then my grandfather was a very unusual man. He was a physician as well, but he was very much, my grandmother was smarter than him and he knew it. And so he had 3 daughters and a son, and he had every expectation that his daughters would go to college and that his granddaughters would go to college and that they would not depend on some man to support them. So
oh, go ahead. I didn't mean to.
So I had support from both my mom and my maternal grandfather very much. You
know, I come from a sports background, and so I use a lot of sports analogies, and I try to avoid that sometimes, but your story just has that sports analogy of the away team, of the underdog team, but the belief in like the support around you, like the belief in like battling those messages from the outside to like keep you focused. It just seems like such a nurturing environment. Is that how you would describe it?
I would describe my immediate family as very nurturing. My grandparents on my mother's side were very nurturing. My father's parents were not so much so, but they kind of were the ones that children should be seen and not heard. So we weren't around them a lot anyway, because we weren't quiet. So the people I was around were very, very supportive. And my mother made sure that if someone was speaking badly, that she would kick them out of our house.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Because now, what was it like when you finally like made it as a doctor? What was that emotion?
So once I got through 9th, maybe 10th grade, I really started being able to hit my stride and study things that were the way my mind worked, which is science and math without all the words. I was never good at English, horrible at languages, never have written a creative writing essay that the teachers thought were good, ever. And as I was able to start specializing in things that I liked, my grades improved. So once I got to college and finished the required courses of English and all that again, and languages, then I also was able to take off and study anatomy and things that made sense to me.
Okay.
And I have brought that forth with what I encourage my kids to do as well, which we can get into, but I've homeschooled my kids for a very long time.
Well, I was going to ask, so, you know, dyslexia is hereditary. Are your kids dyslexic, or what's that?
So my oldest is dyslexic, profoundly dyslexic, and goes to Park Academy, started this year. And before that, he was in German school for kindergarten and preschool. And not only was he not learning German, he was losing his English. We knew something was going on. And so then we put him in public school for 1st grade, and he was intelligent enough that if someone read the story to him once, he could recite it back perfectly.
Okay.
So when I kept asking them to test him for dyslexia, the school kept saying, no, but he can read. I said, well, if you switch the pages around, he's going to tell you the story in the same order. So can you change the pages around and see if he's actually reading? And that's when they finally started listening to me. Although I did have to actually get him tested outside of the school because they kept fighting with me. But he was one of those who would have slipped by without a lot of encouragement from his parents. So we kept pushing the school to get him tested. After 1st grade, his 1st grade teacher was fantastic, but the school knew nothing about dyslexia.
Oh.
And so he was getting more and more depressed. And he always struck my husband and I as an engineer type, loved to build and all that stuff, but was feeling like he was not good at anything. So we pulled him out of school and started homeschooling him in second grade, and got a tutor that fit him. The first tutor we tried was not a good fit. And the second tutor was Jane, and she tutored him from second grade until eighth grade. And when she first met him, she's like, "Oh, we'll get him reading in a year." And I'm like, "Well, he doesn't even know his alphabet." So it took longer than a year, but we got him there. And now he is very proud of his dyslexia. I made a big point of saying, look, it's important to learn the basics. And I'll get into that with my daughter. I wanted him to be able to read. You need to be able to read if you're driving. You need to be able to read your street signs, is what I told him. I said, everything else, you have technology nowadays, and we can figure out how to work that. Not only is he dyslexic, he has ADHD, and he has dysgraphia, and he has speech problems. So he had a nice gambit of them.
Yeah, no small feat there, right?
No, but once we started homeschooling him, we found things he was good at, which was 3D spatial ideas, the engineering things, and he is fantastic at that. He's great at math, as long as there's not a lot of words involved. And so he started realizing he was good at stuff, not just bad at stuff.
So that was one of my questions, and it takes a lot to say, you know what, the school system is not going to get it done for me, so I'm just going to do it myself. Like that is a big move. Like,
it was scary. It was
yeah.
very scary. My husband only agreed to a year trial because he's like, well, I guess if he doesn't do good in second grade, we can just have him repeat it, because that's what you pulled him out for. And so we tried for second grade, and it worked so well that he's like, okay, we can try third grade. And so we just kind of went one grade at a time.
Nice.
And finally built up a team. But before he got pulled out of school, he thought he was bad at everything. And he was, at one point actually said, I wish I wasn't alive. And that's pretty profound for a first grader to tell you. And so I said, well, we can't keep doing what we're doing. It's not working. And back then, Park didn't go down to first and second grade. So that wasn't an option. There were no options of dyslexia-based schools for that age group at that point. So the only choice was to pull them out and homeschool.
It's interesting because the statement that I don't want to be alive anymore, I don't think that's what they kids really mean, but no. It's how they feel, and I think it shows how intelligent they are, because it's almost crazy to continue down an educational path where they're told to be in an environment for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, where they aren't really invited to participate.
No, it's not at all.
In fact, being excluded from that environment.
Yeah, it's not accessible at all. And I have two children. My second child is my daughter. Reads fantastically. Actually, she was at the same school, and they were telling me she reads slowly. I said, but she reads, and she's correct. And they said, well, yeah, but she's not fast. I'm like, well, that will come with time. I'm not worried about that. And she has probably some very mild dyscalculia, and they kept trying to get her to do math sprints, and she ended up 3 years later, we have tried to teach her multiplication tables, and she's like knows her tens, her ones, her zeros.
Wait, I gotta pause you. Okay, I've heard of sprinting. Like, I know, like, the 100-meter sprint. What is a math sprint?
So math sprint is when they have, like, I don't know, 30 to 100 problems on a page, and they're given 5 minutes to do as many as they can.
Okay. So
and
what's the point?
To get fast at math.
Like,
the faster you are, they think the better you are at math. But that's, if you look at the math studies, which I had done, I did a bunch of research as a homeschooler, and the math studies don't show that being fast at math makes you better at math. It just makes you fast at math. The math PhD people will tell you that if you understand that math is a pattern-based problem, you always have a calculator around on you nowadays. So who cares if you know how to do your multiplication tables?
So then I got to ask, are you bought into this assistive technology for students then?
Oh, yes. Yes. We use Learning Ally and Bookshare and Read, Write, and calculators. And we haven't gotten one of the reading pens, but I have offered it a couple times to my children. So I wish I had all that when I was growing up.
Yeah, well, but you already became a doctor. What else would you have become?
I probably wouldn't have been able to read stuff a lot faster because I can listen to a book on tape a lot faster than at normal speed.
That's fair. That's fair.
But reading it by eyesight took a long time.
Totally.
So I definitely took much more time to study than most of my friends did.
So where does your experience as an individual, your experience with your kids, you know, homeschooling one, the math situation with another, but
I
finding,
homeschooled both of them.
oh, okay, homeschooling both of them, finding the workarounds, finding their strengths while they're being in the home environment because you can cultivate that. What is your thoughts on the education system? Like where?
I think the education system should give our kids a base knowledge, teach them how to read. If they're good at that, encourage more reading. If they're good at math, encourage the math. If they're good at theater or emotional thinking, encourage that. I don't think anyone's good at everything. My daughter is not going to be a scientist. She has absolutely no interest in math, although she can do it now.
Sure.
But she loves creative writing. She loves making up stories, and she loves theater, and she loves singing. And my son hates anything artistic. And there's no reason the two of them should be at the same school, which they're not. They're both back in school this year.
Okay.
But they would not belong in the same school because they don't have the same interests.
Sure.
So there's no reason to put them both into the same learning path.
I wanted to ask, as you were developing their strengths, did you see a difference in maybe their confidence or their emotional well-being? Like, did that change? Did you see that?
Yeah, I mean, after about 2 years of homeschooling, my son actually started talking to people his own age again. It took about 2 years before he would interact with other homeschoolers his own age or nearby age. But because he was able to interact with them in things he was good at, whether it was board games or video games or whatever, he didn't feel, what's the word I'm looking for? He didn't feel less than them. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is right
Inferior,
now.
or maybe.
Yeah, thank you, inferior. He didn't
Yeah.
feel inferior. And as he realized he was good at stuff, and he is better at technology than I will ever be. He is now very comfortable going up to someone and going, well, I can't read this. Can you read this for me? And I can do that for you. And my daughter will go up and read his stuff for him, and he will help her with math. And they both realize they're good at different things, and that they didn't have to be good at the same thing.
It's pretty special to learn that now and develop that cohesiveness and the collaboration.
Well, and my kids were very blessed to have it where I could stay home and do that. I mean, I know that they are very privileged in that fact. I wish the schools would provide it, like I said, a base, what everyone needs, and then they can go off in the paths that represent their interest and their abilities better, as opposed to trying to make everyone into a calculus major, because most people don't use calculus in whatever they do with their daily jobs.
Yeah, so I want to talk about that because, right, there is a level of privilege or resources to be able to homeschool or provide tutoring and
Yep.
or even private school. And that's great for those people, but then there's so many others that are hurting. And I know that you talked about it, but what would be your, like, as we're kind of wrapping up, like, you know, like, what is your vision for the world with regard to how we could improve the system?
So my vision would be that I think that if we can give everyone their basic knowledge, that we are going to have a much healthier society. If we have everyone where they can read and write and educate, access whatever their interest is, and encourage that interest, I think that we're going to be able to really expand what we as a world can do. And I don't think everyone needs to be on the same path. Like I said, I have two sisters, and neither one of them are in medicine, and neither one of them is interested in medicine, and there's no reason they need to be. Everyone shouldn't be the same job.
It's beautifully said. I think your story is so cool because you yourself are out there achieving at a high level, being a doctor. You're helping your kids succeed at a high level, be it creative writing or engineering down the road. And I think it's important because we have so many members of our student panel that watch these, that come on, students in the community, and they're like, I'm not going to be Richard Branson, or I'm not going to be the Tom Cruises of the world, perhaps, but they want jobs and they want to be productive and they want to feel like they can contribute. And you're talking about the space that needs to be created in order for that to happen.
Yeah, we don't need, 15 Richard Bransons. We have some. So go and do something else. We can have someone doing my aunt works with a nonprofit. We could definitely have some expansion and help with homeless housing. Like I said, am working as a pediatrician, but I'm also trying to do some education because most physicians don't know anything about dyslexia. They have no idea what it is or what it means. And so trying to educate the doctors who are supposed to be making the diagnosis is important. There's so many different jobs. As I tell my kids, like, if you can imagine a job, it's probably there, or you can make up your own, whether it's coming up with the way the trains need to go across the United States.
Totally.
Like there are so many random jobs that people never even realize exist. And if we all did the same job, we would fall apart as a society, and we'd be really bored.
You're getting lots of hearts on that comment for sure. I'm going to give you the last word. It's all yours. What, and it can be a summary of what you've said, but the last word's yours.
So I know you and I talked about this, and I forgot what I was going to say. I'm so bad.
No, you're not.
It's like, well, I mean, I think the important thing is for people to realize that they can't be good at everything. And so I think that get the basic knowledge for what you need for what you're going to do, and then really flourish in where you're good. If I had tried to learn languages, I would not have gotten anywhere. But you gave me anatomy, and it all made sense to me. Genetics I never had to study because it just made logical sense to me. But I couldn't tell you why Spanish is spoken the way it is, or French, or any of those things. I couldn't tell you how to write a poem. Never will. But I don't need to. So I don't think everyone needs to try to be great at everything. I just think you need to have your basics and then be really good at something.
I love it. Such a solid message. Our president, Danielle Thompson, thanks for all your work, Christy. Jane Cooper, who you mentioned earlier, you're a special one. Andrea Williams, excellent advice. So you're just crushing it on so many levels, Christy. We really appreciate all your work and service to the community.
And I would like to say one more thing to whoever's watching. I am not as active right now because there's so much going on in my family. But if anyone has questions about the medical field or homeschooling or any of that, please give them my information. I am happy to always talk, and sometimes I talk too much. But I'm happy to talk to anyone about what it's like to be a doctor, or what it's like to homeschool, or what it's like to be from the South, whatever.
Well, I will say this to you: keep talking, because we need your words and we need your advice. So thank you very much for your time I know you have a busy schedule, and on taking time on a Monday night to talk with us. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for setting it all up. Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a good night.